Welcome back. It's the responsibility of the legislature to redraw congressional maps every 10 years. And this year they did that. But Governor Ron DeSantis vetoed their maps and came up with his own and is forcing legislators back to Tallahassee next week to approve his maps. Later, I'll speak to Democratic State Senator Annette Taddeo, who is calling on Democrats to boycott the special session next week. But first, I spoke to Steve Busquet, the editorial page editor for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel.
Well, the significance is twofold, the way I see it. You've got a legislature that has totally capitulated to a governor who wants to diminish Black voting power in the state of Florida in the year 2022. So whatever they do is going straight to the courts. But to me, the larger institutional problem here is DeSantis is running roughshod over redistricting, and no one will stand up to him.
The net effect is sort of twofold. We can talk about the minority representation in a second, but even more important, I think, in some ways for Republicans, is that they may be able to pick up 4 additional seats that under the old maps they wouldn't have necessarily got their hands on. So that could be the difference of who controls Congress, the House, next session.
No question about it. I mean, 4 seats in this state in one cycle to flip like that is really astonishing. I know what happened in Miami-Dade in 2020, where the Democrats lost 2 seats, but still, this scenario, one way of looking at it is that the seat now held by Charlie Crist in St. Petersburg could go Republican, and the seat, one of the seats in Orlando held by a Democrat could also go Republican.
So when you look at this, why is the legislature, you use the word capitulating, why is the legislature capitulating to the governor on this?
I think they're intimidated by him. I think that you cannot overlook the fact that DeSantis is enjoying immense popularity with the Republican base at the moment, but that should not change the fact that within this state, you have a separation of powers, and the legislature is a co-equal branch of government with the executive. Through the years, Jim, those of us in the media, me included, I'll certainly own up to my share of the responsibility. We've played up conflicts between governors and legislatures, but looking back on it, it's not only necessary, it's healthy for the system for legislators of the same party as the governor to stand up to that governor. You need that because the system works better when there are checks and balances against each branch. And we completely lost that here.
Well, one of the things I think is, from a political standpoint, is genius on the governor's part, but is sort of shows the raw politics of all this. He has not signed the budget, which means he holds every member in the Senate and the House, the projects in their districts. He could line item veto those projects, and he made it clear he was not going to sign a budget. He was going to wait till after this session, this special session, to see how people did, and then he would decide what to keep and what to remove from his budget.
A good point, but here again, Jim, that should not be DeSantis's call alone to make. Let me explain. Every year they bounce it back and forth in Tallahassee between the presiding officers, and this year it happens to be the House Speaker, Chris Sprowls, who's controlling the flow of legislation. Behind the scenes, they work it out privately, staff to staff, so that the governor's office isn't overwhelmed with too many bills at one time. And once he gets a bill, the governor has 15 calendar days in which he must act. 15 days. Sprowls should have given the governor the budget 15 days ago and taken this weapon out of his hand. They didn't do that, so you're absolutely right. We're going into a special session where he has that budget to use as leverage because members really want these projects to take home.
The governor hasn't hidden his agenda here at all. He says that he wants to draw maps that are race neutral. We're going to potentially likely lose at least 2 African-American representatives as a result of this.
That's right. And just within the past couple of hours before speaking to you here, I went out into the hinterlands of North Florida and covered a local event with Congressman Al Lawson. Al Lawson is in the crosshairs here and is the one most likely to lose his seat in Congress. Lawson is an African-American Democrat. He's been in politics in North Florida for 4 decades. He represents the little tiny town of Midway, a majority Black community just west of Tallahassee. He brought home some money for a community recreation center, and his constituents were enthralled, to get that money. It's a poor, downtrodden little place. But for the past 6 years, they've had a voice in Washington, and they've had someone looking out for them who looks like them. And that's now imperiled by what's going to happen with DeSantis and the legislature next week.
How much of this do you think also is part of DeSantis's drive to potentially run for president, to establish himself as a national figure in doing these types of maneuvers here in Florida to ingratiate himself with the National Republican Party?
I think it's central to that whole strategy, even though it is dividing Floridians and dividing us along racial lines in a new way. But I think that if Ron DeSantis can raise his hand and say, hey, you know what, remember me? I'm the guy who hung tough and insisted on, quote, race-neutral congressional districts. And as a result, Kevin McCarthy is Speaker of the House of Representatives. He's going to look like a hero again to the Republican base.
Democratic State Senator Annette Taddeo says she will boycott next week's session. I asked her why.
Because frankly, I cannot believe that we are experiencing what we're experiencing. We are literally seeing the governor interject himself into a process that's supposed to be done by the legislature and drawing his own maps. And at that, unconstitutional maps. So I believe that if we do not in some way, and all of us can do it in different ways, but in some way object to the fact that we are no longer having a balance of powers to really divide out the branches, and that we are simply rubber stamping anything the governor sends our way, including something so important such as the maps, where the voters already spoke loud and clear. They said they don't want politicians doing the maps. They want them to be fair.
I've spoken to a number of other senators, and I don't get the sense that there's a groundswell of support for your idea. Did you really think that there would be a large group of Democrats that would join you in not showing up in Tallahassee next week?
No, I did not think there would be a large group. I actually know that is a difficult ask, but I really believe that we as Democrats, if we are not going to fight for something as substantial as having representation, taking politics out of the drawing of the maps, if we are not going to stand up for the erasing of Black and brown seats, literally, I don't know what we'll stand for. And we need to, in whatever way each senator and representative wants to, stand up and fight this tooth and nail.
Do you not think there is value in being on the floor, being in the committees where this is heard, establishing a record, asking tough questions, putting things into the public domain that can be used by the courts? Couldn't you be the one asking those sorts of questions that might elicit a response that could be pivotal in a court case?
I know that that is indeed the case in many cases. And as a matter of fact, some of the reasons why we have SB 90 now being appealed, because a judge decided many of the parts were actually not constitutional or were suppressing minorities' rights. Definitely, there are things that we put on the record throughout the entire process. But guess what? We had a process. We had a process of drawing maps. We had a committee. We had an entire time during the session to do this, and we did this. And guess what? This Democrat voted for that map that the Senate proposed for the congressional districts. Why? Because it went through a process. Is it perfect? No, but it is what the voters asked us to do, which is to go through a process and do it properly. What I'm saying is we are no longer having a process. We are throwing it out, and literally the House Speaker, the Senate President, are just simply saying, whatever you want, Governor, we're just going to turn around and do it. What deal happened? They're not going to tell us on the floor. The deal happened on their own in the dark of night or on the phone where there is no record. And the point is, we must stand up whatever way each senator and person in the House decides to do this. We must stand up and fight and call out the wrong of this process that is just a farce.
So do you believe Democrats are entirely irrelevant?
No, I do not. And that's my point. Democrats are not irrelevant, but we must stand up strong and show that, and I know we are united in disagreeing with what's going on. We have to fight this because we do have federal laws. I think the ultimate goal is to go all the way to the Supreme Court and undo the rights that for so many years minority communities have had in order for us to have a voice in the halls of the state legislatures and the Congress.
There is a process, and it will very likely end up in the courts. So I guess the hardest question I would ask you is this. If you're not willing to go to Tallahassee next week and fulfill your duties as an elected representative of the people of your district, why not just resign and have somebody else go up instead?
I am fulfilling my duty. My duty is to ensure that we do things legally and through the process. When the process is thrown out by the institutions, January 6th is actually a coup and an insurrection example, but all it takes is for us to not say anything, to not actually fight when you are usurping the process of checks and balances and the legislative process we are supposed to do. To go there is to actually, to me, is to say that I am okay with usurping our duty, which is our duty to do the job we were there to do. It's not just to press a button, it is actually to make sure that it's done properly and not just to rubber stamp what the governor sends our way.
We'll be right back.